Hello and welcome in, my fellow nerds. It's me, Makazi007 from Nerd Crew, coming at you today to talk about a specific game, Tactics Ogre Reborn on the Nintendo Switch, which I currently have right here in front of me. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to make a video on this game, but I've put a ton of hours into it, and I did want to kind of start doing on this channel some kind of minor reviews. However, we're not really going to do review scores, and I don't really want to do like stars and stuff like that. Instead, I basically just want to talk about video games that I've played and or beaten, hopefully beaten, where I can either recommend playing them to people, tell people that they really need to play this game like it's a must play, maybe telling people it's not for everyone, or telling them that it's just a garbage game. But basically the whole point of this series is going to be to kind of convey like a friend-to-friend conversation. If you ask me like, hey, have you ever heard of this game? I can give you like my thoughts on it and tell you whether I think you really should play it or not. So that's why I wanted to go over Tactics Ogre Reborn, and specifically Tactics Ogre Reborn, because I have put, according to my Nintendo Switch, 70 or more hours into this game over the course of the last, I want to say almost 2 years. I feel like I started playing this, it was definitely over a year ago. I just can't remember exactly when I started playing it, but just some basics on the game. Tactics Ogre Reborn is a remake of technically a Super Famicom game. I don't believe it was available here in the States. It was a Japan-only game, and then later on they had kind of remastered it, pseudo-remastered it for the PSP. And when they made it for the PSP, it got a small cult following. A lot of people ended up enjoying the game. It's touted as being like the grandfather of tactical and strategy RPGs. And so when it was reborn onto the Nintendo Switch, I was kind of curious. I really wanted to know, what it's all about. I've heard of the game before, and I have been starting to get into strategy type games like this. I haven't played too many. I've played like Mario and Rabbids, which really made me fall in love with the genre. I've also played a couple different Warhammer 40k style ones, but I haven't really dove too heavily into this type of gameplay. I've heard of the good ones. I've heard of your Final Fantasy Tactics. I've heard of your other tactics strategy games, as well as Triangle Strategy. And so I got this game a little over a year ago, and I wanted to give it a try. And I'll be honest with you, at first I was having a good time with it, but then it quickly kind of soured for me. I'm going to be honest with you. And so after I finally beat the game about a month or two ago, I decided maybe I'll make a video on it. And then when I started doing research on this game, that's when I was like, I think I have to make a video on it, because going through, and I've kind of come across a few, and I'll leave them in the sources down below, a couple different YouTube reviews on this game. And I will say, just generally, this game reviews exceptionally well. Not just it reviews well, but like I went on to Metacritic, for example, and it's got a score of 84, with the lowest score being a 70. That's pretty good. Nintendo Life has it as a 7 out of 10. Game Informer and GameSpot have it as 90s out of 100. Overall, even the reviews for the PSP version are about the same. They're all rated very, very highly. So I played for Tactics Ogre for the first time. I didn't play it on the PSP. I played it right here on the Nintendo Switch. And like I said, I started out having an okay time, but like, I don't know. It just didn't vibe with me. One of the big things is the story for this game. A lot of people tout it as having one of the greatest stories. It's such a great political conflict type story. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to go through a couple people's reviews and kind of talk about like my perspective on this game as a rookie tactics player and as someone who's never played this game before. Before we get into that though, the story, which is what a lot of people say is its strongest point, the story is basically a brother and sister witness a horrific event, basically a massacre. Their father is killed, and they basically go on a revenge story. And through that, they go into and basically unravel a almost decades-long conflict between different factions in this world, and you kind of see how they play out. I think it's 3 factions. It was a little confusing, if I'm being honest with you. But overall, that's the basic story with no spoilers. And so I wanted to just quickly go over a couple of reviews that I found. The first review that I looked up was called Tactics Ogre Reborn on Nintendo Switch is the best SRPG by SwitchUp. And then again, I'll leave the link down below. basically what they said is they gave it very high review scores for all of its gaming categories. They gave it a 19 out of 20 for gameplay, 17 out of 20 for controls, 18 out of 20 for visuals, audio is 20 out of 20, and value is 19 out of 20, which I think is an interesting category for a review, by the way. And they basically claimed the only negative thing that they called out was that the retry mechanic doesn't work very well, and I will get into that. Next up was Tactics Ogre Reborn Review, my new favorite game by Amateur Game Review. They did a quick 5-minute review where they kept saying how amazing everything was. They focus on the story, but then they just never elaborate on what in the story made it amazing. They just kept saying the story is amazing, and they don't want to spoil anything, and that there's multiple storylines. And then he ended up finishing the video basically by saying, I moved it into the top 5 games I've played in my entire lifetime. And I was just like, I was watching this review, which was only 5 minutes, and again, he said like the biggest selling point was the story, but then didn't talk about it at all. And so I definitely want to talk about the story as well in a minute. But then the last positive review that I watched was Tactics Ogre Reborn Review Part 1 for the New Fans by a YouTuber called Coffee Potato. Now, I will say, Coffee Potato's entire channel is basically this game. So that's a little on the bias side, but they've been playing since the PSP days. So this YouTuber, they love this game. They had so many positive things to say. And again, they played since the PSP version. And so they actually have a really good, unique view on comparing the PSP to the Switch version, I will say. And I will say also that they have that unique perspective. And it was good to hear from them because I didn't realize there were so many differences that they had made between these two versions. Basically, they went into, again, the story, how they said you can really feel the story and how it's, you know, you can feel the tension between the factions, and you can kind of, you're going through the story with these characters. You don't really know a lot, and they don't know a lot, and as they're learning, you're kind of learning, which I can kind of agree with some of that. And then also, the one thing I will say is they called this game user-friendly. And that line, when I heard that, that was the moment where I was like, I have to make a video on this game and kind of set it straight. Because again, I'm only finding not just positive reviews, extremely positive reviews. All of these reviews were like 90 out of 100s and plus, you know what I mean? But then I found one person, only one video by a person named Retro Rebound titled, So I Played Tactics Ogre for the First Time, ... And they go off and they basically say that they only got a chance to play the game for 20 hours and then they dropped it. They said they couldn't get into the story, there wasn't enough world building, and they had to look up information basically on Wikipedia in order to really make things kind of make sense. They said there wasn't a lot of character interactions outside your own crew. He did say the writing was very good, especially the old English style writing, but the AI is terrible. They charge into battle all the time to get themselves killed, and then the menu system is rough. And overall, he said that he would rather play Triangle Strategy. And he also claimed that if you play Triangle Strategy before this game, you're probably going to agree with him. I have not played Triangle Strategy. I've only played this game in terms of like these old kind of fantasy style tactics games. And so with all of that being said, I kind of wanted to go through some different points. First off, I will agree that the audio and visuals in this game are awesome. I love the pixel graphics. I really enjoy the music and the audio design. The voice acting is really good, very crisp, very clean. The artwork is very nice. It's very high, like not really high fantasy, I would say, but it is very fantasy-like. And the sprites are awesome. Getting that out of the way, I heard from multiple of these, reviews that they were like, the story is like the main selling point. Like the gameplay is not the huge selling point. The story is the big thing. I did not vibe with this story. I'm sorry, but I didn't. I feel like I played the game. I kind of could follow along, but there was a lot of confusing moments. This game really makes you feel like you should have had a manual. And that's one thing I wanted to kind of get into with newer games. These are the types of games, and I was explaining this to a coworker the other day, that back in the day when this came out on Super Famicom, and even for the PSP, it came with a manual. And that manual explained the factions. It explained a little bit of the backstory and conflict. It explained the characters. In the Switch version, I mean, these games, they don't come with any manual anymore. There's nothing in here. So it's just the game. And so without that kind of background, it was a little confusing. at first. I couldn't really tell what faction we were supposed to be mad at, and I was like, am I supposed to trust this person? Am I not supposed to trust this person? It was very confusing. And honestly, you go through this story and there is magic in the game, but it's more so like warfare based. You know what I mean? Like there is magic for fighting, but they never really go into like religion and stuff. They never really go into any like high type of magic and gods and goddesses and things like that until the end of the game. And this is kind of a little bit of a spoiler warning, but the end of the game, out of nowhere, it feels like they really, and maybe the storyline I went down just didn't go over this, and maybe other storylines would have, but at the end of the game, they're just out of nowhere. You're fighting the devil out of nowhere. You're literally fighting this game's version of the devil, like a long lost like evil god. And I'm just like, where did this come from in the storyline? Weren't we just trying to get revenge for our fallen and like unite the kingdom? That was the whole spiel. Every single time we got into story was like, I'm here to unite the kingdom. I felt like that was completely thrown out the window at the end, where it's like, okay, you've fought this person, you've defeated them, but oh my bad, they opened the gate to the underworld. Now you got to fight the demon king. And I'm just like, what the where did that come from? So story wise, and again, please, if you like this game, please leave me a comment in the comments below and tell me I'm dumb. Just tell me I'm dumb and just explain to me why this story is good, because I feel like a lot of the times I would watch these reviews and every review was like, well, I don't want to do spoilers, but just trust me, the story is good. No, spoil me, please. Tell me what the fuck this game is supposed to be about, because I really never followed. I played this game for 70 plus hours. I beat the game. I killed the Demon King, and I still barely know what this game is about. The gameplay, I will say, for a strategy RPG, the gameplay was good. Overall, it was very challenging at times, sometimes too challenging. There's a lot of game mechanics I feel like they kind of spring on you a little bit. They don't really explain things. Like, you use a spell and then you get, like, I'll use an air spell and it'll say your character got air aversion, and I'm like, okay, what the hell does that mean? They just never tell you. You just kind of have to know that when you hit someone with an air attack, that the next time you hit them with any attack, it'll be a little stronger on them and stuff like that. And you can buff yourself and things like that as well. There's like cards on the field you can gather that buff your guys, which most of them are self-explanatory, except for the auto skill. I still don't really fully understand that one. I thought it was you pick up the card and then the next turn you can use your skill, but there were so many times where I pick up the card and the next turn I still wouldn't be able to use my skill. So I don't really know what that one does. There's also just a lot of game mechanics. Again, they just don't explain. There's a whole crafting system that I didn't make my first item until about 40 hours into the game. Legitimately. And then I made an axe. I made like a +1 hand axe, which was dramatically stronger than the one my character was using. But I tried making other weapons and stuff, and I never had the materials. I never knew where to find materials. Like, yeah, they drop off of enemies, but it's very rare that they do. The game really doesn't force you to grind. So it doesn't really force you to go out and explore and be like, hey, go fight these random things to get more items. But at the same time, there's certain things that you just can't find in shops, like magic leaves. At one point, you can buy them, and then at a certain point in the game, you just can't buy them anymore. And you kind of need them for the future battles. They're very helpful to have. And if you have the basic magic leaf, you can upgrade them to the higher ones. And again, they're good to have. They're good basic items that you just can't buy. Unless, again, I missed something. And that's going to be the theme throughout this entire kind of review is I feel like I played this game, but I feel like I missed something. I missed an explanation. Maybe I read something too fast and didn't understand it. I just feel like there's a lot in this game that like people were saying was like really good. And I don't know. Like I said, one person called this user-friendly. This game is user-friendly, like rookie-friendly. It is not. It is very much not. Going back to the reviews as well, one of them had a negative thing calling out the retry mechanic. And so in this game, like most games like SOCOM-style games and strategy RPGs, there's permadeath. If your character dies, you get, in this game, 3 turns to try and revive them, 3 of their turns to try and revive them. And if they don't, they go away forever. So a lot of people don't want that, and a lot of people want their characters to live for the whole game, like me. So you end up wanting to be like, oh, I'll just retry the battle. Well, here's the problem. The game has a save option, and then it has a quick save. And once you use the quick save, it goes away. So if you don't save basically after every battle, and basically before every battle, if you want to redo that battle, you can't just turn off your game. You'll lose save data. So what I ended up having to do multiple times, because I kept forgetting to save between battles, was you just have to lose. You just have to sit there and be like, there was a few times where my character, I'll use a very specific example. Towards the end of the game, you have to go to a place called the Hanging Gardens, which is on these like cliff sides and stuff. And this entire game, I have never seen a character fall off a map. This is 60 hours into the game now. I've never seen it. And these fucking dragons kept knocking my healer off the cliff because the game forces you to go on the cliffside to get to them. I think she fell off that cliff like 14 times. Not even exaggerating. Like, I really retrayed that battle that many times because she kept falling off, and I'm like, she's my strongest healer, and I can't have her just falling off. So I kept restarting the battle over and over and over again, and then finally, I just was like, you are susceptible to falling off for some reason, just stay in the back and don't ever move. Hopefully your heal will have enough range and you'll be able to hit people with it, but I can't risk it. So that mechanic was such bullshit because, again, you don't see it anywhere throughout the game, unless, again, there's parts of the game I didn't play, maybe, because that is one thing I will say that I noticed about watching specifically Coffee Potatoes videos, because that YouTuber goes into very high depth of these games. And they say how there's so many changes and so many good strategies and there's so many different like places you can go. I felt like I did a lot of stuff, but I don't think I unlocked a lot of optional things, if I'm being honest with you. I think I did a very straightforward playthrough. So overall, I mean, that falling off the cliff mechanic really pissed me off. I'm going to be honest with you. But the problem was I had to keep just being like, she would fall off turn 2. And then I'm like, great, I have all these healthy people waiting to get into the fight, and now I just have to just basically have them fight each other, because you can fight your own characters in this game. And that's what I started doing. I would just kill off all my characters and restart the battle from the beginning again and again and again until finally I beat it and moved on to the next one. And it happened to me, I think, 3 times where I thought I had saved beforehand, so I just turned off the game, turned it back on, and then I just lost like hours of gameplay. Like, there was one time, again, in the Hanging Gardens area, I thought I had saved it. Apparently, I hadn't saved in like 6 battles. And so I just lost 6 battles worth of victories and had to redo all of them. It was so frustrating. The game, the level spike in this game is insane. You play the first couple battles and you think like, oh yeah, this won't be too bad. This won't be too hard. The only crappy part is that you can't control your sister's character, whose name I can't even remember anymore. Kachua, I think her name is. And so she does this thing where she's a healer class. She runs into battle all the time and then gets herself killed. But in this game, when she gets to too low of health, she just shift stones out of the battle. And now you're stuck without a healer for the rest of the battle. That happened to me so many times because she's like the only character you can't control in the game. Everyone else, you can set them to be AI if you want. But as, you know, other reviewers like Retro Rebound have said, the AI is awful. Like, they immediately just run into battle and do whatever the hell they want. And they do dumb stuff. They'll shoot the wrong person if they're an archer. They'll go after, they'll use spells that you're like, why are you using that spell instead of like an attacking spell? Or why are you using this item, you know, when you shouldn't be? Why, like, even her as a healer, she would heal. I would have like 3 people that were heavily damaged, and one would be on the brink of death, and she would heal one of the other ones. And I'm like, dude, he's almost dead. Like, why don't you heal the guy who needs it the most? Like, the AI is not good in this game. But going more into the gameplay, I will say that there's just so much. I'm trying my hardest not to just completely dump on this game, because I do feel like there are people out here who enjoy it, who clearly love it. They reviewed it super well, and good for them. But I don't want the internet to just be one-sided on this game. I want people to realize, if they look up a review for Tactics Ogre, that they're going to see some people who are going to say it's good, some people are going to say, be careful with this one. And I'm going to be one of those videos that tells people to be careful. Not to spoil my review for this game when I do the kind of score at the end, but generally speaking, the gameplay for this game is just very challenging, and the menu system and everything else, they don't explain anything in this game. You really have to micro-analyze everything on the screen to click certain buttons to be able to be like, oh, this is what's going to tell me what this game does or what this certain ability does. Because there are buttons that are there to be like, all right, this is the button you click, and then it starts giving you explanations, but it's so hidden. It's so all the way in the corner. I didn't realize it until I watched Coffee Potato's video. He clicked a button, and all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, this is explaining the affinity charts. Where the hell was that? Because there is like an elemental affinity in this game, and for the longest time I was just trying to figure out which is weak to what, and I never figured it out. But apparently all I had to do was hit the minus button on the character screen, and it would have told me the whole time. 70 hours into this game, and I never knew that. Like, there's a lot of nuances like that. There's a lot of things that if you play this game, you have to just pay attention to everything. I will also say that I streamed to this game originally. The first, I want to say first 5, maybe 6 hours of this game, I probably streamed. And I got to a battle with some necromancer guy that took me a bunch of times to beat because it was just bullshit the way the battlefield was set up against you. And I finally beat him, and someone in my chat was just like, awesome job, dude. You know that was an optional fight too, right? You could have just skipped him if you wanted to. And I was like, what the hell, man? No one told me that? Like, are you serious? But yeah, I struggled. I struggled with this game a lot, beating it, playing all these levels and stuff. And if you want to talk about level design, like I said, I've played a couple of games like this. The level design is usually kind of even. You know, there's cover here, there's cover there, there's mountains there. But for this game, I felt like probably after the first chapter, and even a few battles in the first chapter, every battlefield was so heavily skewed against your team. Every single one, you had the low ground. Every single one, for the longest time, there'd be these giant walls you have to try and climb up, and there'd be these huge bottlenecks where the enemies would just put all of their heaviest hitters into the bottleneck. They'd put their dragons and their ogres and their demons and whatever else, and you just can't get through. You can't even muscle through. So it took a lot of strategy to get around a lot of these levels. But I do feel like this game was unnaturally hard for that reason. Like, I don't remember the last Battlefield that was actually like made in a way that was okay for both parties. It was almost always skewed. And I'm not looking for flat battlegrounds all the time, but there's so many where it's like, if you don't have a bunch of flyers to get over like these lava pits, for example, you know, good luck. You're just going to have to wait for them to come to you, I guess, which is what I kept doing. I mean, I for a while, my main strategy was stay close to spawn and let them come to you, because going to them would just split up my guys too much and get them killed. So overall, I think the gameplay can be fun, but it is very challenging. And there's a lot to it, and I don't want to keep, grinding away at it, but some people saying that this game is beginner friendly is just completely off base. Like, if you want to get into this type of gameplay strategy and tactical RPGs, I heavily recommend going and playing other games. I understand this is the grandfather of this genre, which is, I think, a big reason why it gets a lot of respect from people, but that doesn't mean it's the best. This is one of those circumstances where being the first isn't the best. But overall, I would have to say, and again, no shade on any of these creators. They enjoy the game. That's good for them. I'm glad they're having a great time with it. But after putting all this time into it, I almost really wish that the one guy, Retro Rebound, I wish he had finished the game and didn't drop it after 20 hours, because a lot of the stuff that he was saying, if he had kept playing, it would have just gotten worse. Like, it just would have gotten so much worse. Especially the final boss in this game is dramatically harder than anything else in this game. And I mean, first of all, it's just a gauntlet. Like, the end of the game is just like, I think it's like a 3 or 4 battle gauntlet. And luckily the game does tell you, like, hey, you're about to start a gauntlet. If you need items, get them now. But I will say, it was just like, you're going from tough battle to tough battle to tough battle. You're using up a lot of your great items. And then the end is just like, you're fighting the Demon Lord, and he doesn't do a lot of attacks, but when he attacks, he basically one-shots your guys. And maybe it's because my guy's armor wasn't good enough. Maybe I didn't do things, because remember, I wasn't crafting a lot in this game. Maybe I should have been crafting more, making better armor and stuff. But yeah, my guys were just getting one-shotted. It took me like 5 or 6 tries to beat him, and I basically just had to split up all my guys and wait for him to come to them and then have them fight him, because they did almost no damage to him. He was doing heavy damage to them. He had an AoE that covered literally a quarter of the battlefield, so if you just grouped in and tried to fight him, he would just wreck all of your guys at once. And it was rough. And then to make it really burn, for me personally, I realized that there was multiple endings in this game, and after looking into it, I'm pretty sure I got the worst ending. After all of that, after all the multiple endings you can get, I'm pretty sure I got what was like notoriously the bad ending for this type of video game. You know what I mean? It wasn't a good one, very ambiguous, and again, people say the story is one of the strong points of this game, but most of the story is you chasing around enemy generals, the same enemy generals. And again, maybe because I went down the wrong path, but I can't tell you how many times I fought the same goddamn general, and then you'd beat him, and he would shift stone away. And it's like, great, I'm going to have to fight this guy again. Like, how many times do I have to beat the same damn person? You think that armies would have enough, like, leaders and generals that you could fight other people at least. But that's just not the case. And then the last thing I will gripe upon is and this is something that a couple of people did mention in their reviews, the concept that there really isn't a defined way, like a really easily visually defined way of telling your members of your squad apart from enemies. And there have been multiple times where I've shot a spell at a unit that was my own, because he looked exactly like the one in the other one. I did start to eventually realize that if you scroll over to someone and you look at the bottom where it shows the turn order, it actually lifts the person that you're aiming at. So that's one way of doing it. Another way that someone in one of the reviews said is pay attention to the banner next to their face. But generally, just like the sprites were good, they were great artwork, but a lot of them were the same, which was good because then you could tell what you were fighting. You go and scout a battle and you look around and you're like, okay, I can tell they have a couple magicians. I can tell they have a couple priests. Pretty sure this character is an archer, based off of just their sprite. Until you get to the end of the game and all of a sudden you're fighting Dark Knights, and guess what? They all have the same sprite, but they all have different abilities. You don't know until you start fighting them. I was fighting one group of guys and I was like, I don't know what they are. Based off of the amount of damage I'm doing, I'm assuming these guys are ranged fighters, ? And then one of them whipped out a pistol and shot me. And I was just like, I didn't even realize pistols were in this game. Apparently they are. Apparently there is swashbucklers and stuff like that too, and I just never got to that. But generally speaking, I will say, overall, this game is not terrible. I just think that it is highly not user-friendly. And if you are someone who's never played an SRPG or a TRPG, I would go with caution. So for those people who are, veterans of this kind of gameplay, I think this game is good for you, honestly. With my rating system, is it a garbage game? No. Would I recommend people play this game? Not really. Is it a must-play, like everyone should have it? Obviously not. I think that this game is a not-for-everyone game. So for my rating system, that's a tick above what I would call like a really garbage game not to play. But generally, I would say that this game is great for people who love strategy and tactical RPGs. However, those saying this game is even remotely beginner-friendly, I very highly disagree with. I think that if you are a beginner, I would steer clear of this game and play something else first. Maybe something a little easier, like a Mario Rabbids game, or like a SOCOM game. Or you could even go with something that's tough, but maybe if you're into story-heavy games, go play things like Triangle Strategy. Go play things like Final Fantasy Tactics, which both of those games I have not played, but I've heard those stories are excellent. And I hope to play them myself one day. But overall, that is my take on Tactics Ogre. Definitely a game that I would say is not for everyone. Okay, thank you everyone who watched this video. I appreciate it. Again, this is going to be kind of like a new type of video I'm going to try and work on, and maybe I can get some of the other guys from Nerd Crew to work on as well, where we take games that we've played and or beaten and kind of give them like a pseudo review. More of like a friendly, like if I saw you just at a party, hanging out, whatever, with some friends, and you asked me like, oh, what do you think of this game? That's kind of the vibe I'm going for. I'm kind of going for the vibe of, is this game something I would recommend to my friend, something I would tell them they have to play, or something I would tell them to steer clear from? And that's kind of the goal of this. Overall, Tactics Ogre was what it was. But again, thank you guys for watching. If you like the video, thanks again. If you have any comments, please leave them down in the comment section below. I would love to hear your takes on them. If you're someone who loved this game, please tell me why. Give me a real reason, though, because a lot of these reviewers, I feel like we're just like, it's good. No explanation. Like, tell me things in, even spoiler warnings, like, tell me things in the comments below that are spoilers, that, like, I love this game because of this specific story element. Maybe it's something I missed. Maybe it's something, and again, I played this game over the course of over a year, so I might have forgotten a few things. But generally speaking, I don't think I could really tell people to play this game or recommend it. It's just not for everyone, and it just wasn't for me. But overall, I'm glad that there are people out there who like these kinds of games, and I'm glad this game exists so that we have other games that have basically been inspired by it, and I hope to play those soon. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We are Nerd Crew. We do kind of a variety of different stuff. Anything really nerdy. We do right now. We're doing pickups videos. I'm working on some reviews and some collections videos. I'm hoping to drive this channel to doing more well-rounded nerdy things in the future, and so stay tuned for that. And thanks again for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you later, nerds.